Today on the 1012 Big Show, Scott McFarland, Leah Nelson, and Chase A. Kiddy are all here to help us recap everything that went down in Week 7 in the Big 12, including a shirtless student section, why we haven't talked about the Big 12's non-conference record against Power 4 teams, and the contenders to face Texas Tech and Arlington at the end of the season.
Every leap in American history has needed breakthrough energy.
Ignition, liftoff.
Now, AI is here, and Chevron is working to power it. We're aiming to develop multi-gigawatt power plants near data centers, designed with future pathways to lower carbon intensity. AI gets the power it needs, communities get the jobs, and the grid stays strong. Powering AI today builds America's next superpower.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify, spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome to the 1012 Big Show, where we recap the weekend of Big 12 action with a variety of guests. This week that includes Scott McFarland, Leah Nelson, Chase A. Kiddy, and more. Of course, the 1012 podcast is the flagship show of the 1012 Network. Find every show on the network at 1012network.com. We're also partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip Slavin. Thank you for joining us on this Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever you happen to be listening. Wherever you are listening, please do us a favor. Leave us 5 stars and a review. It takes a few seconds, maybe a minute for you. It's a huge, huge thing for us, so we would greatly appreciate if you listen on the regular. First of all, thank you for listening. Let me just say I appreciate that. But if you haven't left a review and you are listening on a platform that does take reviews, please leave us 5 stars. Leave a review. I'd love to read it here on the show. If you're watching or listening on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe. Help us reach some new Big 12 fans. Let them know all about the 1012. Okay, as we do on the very first segment of this show on Mondays, we go in the rotation. Joining us today, an often requested guest, of course, the host of the Kansas State show here in our network, Boscoe's Boys. He is Scott McFarland. Scott, welcome back, bud.
Hey, it's good to be here again. My Sunday is all about podcasting. I recorded 2 episodes of my own. This is the second show I've come on as a guest. It is my passion project. It is the love of my life outside of my dog Chauncey. So I always love coming on. Anytime you ask me, I'm going to try to make it happen. So thank you for having me on, and I'm pumped to do it, man. Big 12 is the most fun conference to talk about. I will always say yes.
It is. It is the most fun conference to talk about. Also on loan from Cyclone, Fanatic, trash talk queen of the 1012 Network when it comes to softball season, Miss Quad Cities herself, Leah Nelson.
Thank you for having me. I will always reserve my Sundays for the 1012 Network as well. So shout out Phillip.
I appreciate
He's the
Leah.
best.
Yes.
I think we should all hype up Phillip. He's the best in the business. Put together this great network, does the big show. His picks pods are amazing. The softball stuff, amazing, even though K-State doesn't have a softball team. I'm still listening. I'm still listening to everything Phillip puts out, and I'm pumped to be able to share an episode with you, Leah. It's been on my bucket list, my podcasting bucket list. So
That is the sweetest thing.
I'll try my best not to fall in love by the end of my time on here.
Good luck, sir. Good luck. Look, she is the mother of the Cycloneers, so, that's not... Okay.
It's true.
Before we dive into this weekend, I was asked to discuss this by a loyal listener. So I'm going to explain why I have avoided the topic, and then we're going to move on from this. The Big 12 and the SEC are the only conferences to have a winning record in non-conference play against Power 4 opponents. The SEC went 10-6. Big 12 is 8-6. Big 10's 5-6, and the ACC 5-12. Now, of course, the SEC and ACC have some games later in the season with their rivalry games like Florida State, Florida, and Clemson, South Carolina, and so on and so forth. So these things will change. By the way, the ACC actually has a worse win percentage against Power 4 teams than the American Conference does, in case you want to know how that conference is doing. Look at all these teams in the ACC who haven't lost a conference game yet. Cool, great, awesome, wonderful. Moving on. On the surface, the fact that the Big 12 has the second best record against Power 4 teams in non-conference is fantastic. That's what I was asked. Why haven't you talked about this? Why haven't the stats been posted on Twitter? Why haven't you talked about this, Phillip? Here's why. Because when you dig a little deeper, it's not a topic you want to get everyone talking about, because then they too will dig a little bit deeper. The wins. Now, I don't have the records because I made all my notes before this past Saturday's game, so bear with me. Stanford, North Carolina twice, Iowa, SMU twice, UCLA, and Pitt. Now listen, Pitt's 4-2 now because of that Florida State win. UCLA is now 2-4 because of their win over Michigan State. I don't know what SMU is 4-2. Iowa, I don't know. I think they won, so they're 4-2. North Carolina sucks, and Stanford. The records are fine. Like, I think they're actually now, I think it's actually above 500 now. So, now granted, against Power 4 competition, it's still way below 500. Here are the losses, though. Here's the losses. Mississippi State, Nebraska, Auburn, Missouri, Oregon, Georgia Tech. Those teams are really good. They have really good records. Georgia Tech's still undefeated. Oregon just lost their first game against Indiana. Missouri lost their first game against Alabama. Auburn's mid. Nebraska's pretty good. And Mississippi State's not bad. So what I see here is the Big 12 lost to all the good teams in Power 4 in non-conference and beat all the bad ones. So why have I not sat here and paraded around the Big 12 has the second best record against Power 4 teams in non-conference stat? Because it's not really that great of a stat. It's 8-6, so it's 2 games above 500, and the wins are not much to be excited about. And they came BYU's win over Stanford. At this point, they're the only team you can say, outside of Utah's win over UCLA, that are still in contention for the conference title. Because Iowa State's now dropped a second one, so the Iowa win, like, great, cool, awesome. They're kind of in a bad spot. UNC was beat by UCF and TCU. SMU was beat by TCU and Baylor. And Pitt was beat by West Virginia, who hasn't won a conference game yet. So, to those listening who may have been asking the same question, this is why I have avoided this topic until I was asked to talk about it, in which case I will give the people what they want and explain why I have been avoiding it. You guys have any thoughts?
The only thought, I go back to when I came on after week 1, I actually had a back and forth with Andy on that. He and I saw things completely different. I pointed at some of the losses that the Big 12 had and said, hey, this is bad for the conference. These were some marquee games early that we could have won to hang our hat on. He said, oh, no, not a big deal. Still games left to be won. And we disagreed, and we didn't win any of those other marquee games. And look, I'd rather have a winning percentage. I would rather have, that over the ACC and Big Ten. I'd rather have these wins than not have them. But you made a perfect point that the contenders in the conference, they don't have a marquee win, which makes it tough come at-large time, come playoff time. And there isn't anything that you can point to and be like, yes, go Big 12. Outside of some rivalry wins, it's good for Iowa State to beat Iowa. It would have been great for KU to beat Missouri. Sure, glad we beat all these teams, beat UNC and SMU, because I think they both look fraudulent. The ACC is horrible. But again, you don't have that marquee win. There were opportunities for them. We didn't get them. So I think it's right not to be waving that flag super hard. That said, if we somehow win a bunch of bowl games, I will be waving that flag pretty hard. But we have to wait for bowl season for that to happen. So I think you have it spot on, Phillip.
I was going to say, if it was worth talking about, we would have been talking about it. I think you made a great point, Phillip.
Correct.
Like, they did what they needed to do. They won the games they were supposed to, and then, plus 1 or 2. But it's nothing special. And it's in the past. I'm kind of like, I'm more in my head. I'm like, I like focusing on conference games. So besides Iowa State, that game will always be number 1 in my heart.
As it should be. Okay. Discussed it, and we're done discussing it. And we're going to move on to what happened this weekend. kind of touched on Iowa State. Let's dive in here. Until further notice, Leah, I'm sorry to say that Iowa State is officially off the contenders list for the Big 12, and I am officially moving them to the list of teams eliminated from Arlington.
It's like a
with
gut
Oklahoma
punch.
State, West Virginia, UCF, and Colorado. Joining Iowa State will also be TCU. Now, there's one rule we're going to keep here for a little bit, and that's this. Losing to Texas Tech does not eliminate you from making it to Arlington. That loss is not going to hold. We're not going to hold that loss against people the same way losses to other contenders are, or teams who are out of contention, because Texas Tech is going to be in Arlington for the Big 12 championship game. So it's not like you're going to have to worry about that as a tiebreaker, right? It's going to be all the other losses you pile up that are going to be held against you. Those are the losses that matter. So for Iowa State, who now has losses to Cincinnati, who's a contender, and Colorado, who is not, those are two bad losses. They're going to need a lot of help to be able to get back into a situation where they can get there. TCU, same thing. Lost to a contender in Arizona State. Then you just got blasted by Kansas State, who is not in the running. They're not out of it yet. I haven't moved them out completely, but not a contender. So they are off of that list. Do you guys feel like that is a fair evaluation? And how do you feel about the losing a game to Texas Tech does not eliminate you rule?
I think it's super fair, as much as it hurts to say. But I mean, I also am a firm believer, like, never say never. But when you have to start hoping that other teams lose, like, that's when you kind of start to lose hope, in my opinion. So I think it's fair to say that they're both out. So much would have to happen. I would love for it to all play out, but so much would have to happen to see a different outcome. You're spot on, Phillip.
And even if you didn't need a lot, right? If you have 2 losses before the middle of October, you're still asking your team to run the table for a large portion of the season. Like K-State fan, like I do this thing on my show, What's on the Line? I've kind of jokingly, even after the Baylor, said, well, Arlington's still on the line because what if you win out, right? If you can get to 7-2, you can still get there. But when you're talking about having to win 5 straight games as a team that has a lot of flaws, that is so much to ask for. So I think anytime you get to 2 losses this early in a 16-team league with no divisions, I think it's fair to say, hey, you're more than likely already done. Now, it makes for a fun story, right? If one of these teams, Phillip, that you eliminated ends up going on this run and you're going into that final week in the season where it's like, hey, all they need to do is win and the tiebreaker luck fell their way, that comes for a fun story. But what's the point in having a podcast if you're not willing to declare teams dead maybe a little bit too early, even before the math says so? So I think you're spot on once again.
Yeah, I just like it was one thing in a 10-team league, right? But with 16 teams, because of all the tiebreakers and all the different things that are going to go into a team getting there, and because it really does feel like this isn't a battle for both spots. It's a battle for one spot. Look, could Texas Tech lose multiple games? Maybe. Like the season is halfway over. There's a lot of games still to be played. The last news I saw in regards to Baron Morton were pretty good. So there's an expectation he will come back. But y'all, he got knocked out of that game. Kansas had an opportunity, made it an interesting second quarter, and then the second half happened, and it wasn't interesting anymore because I asked Kelly Ford, our good friend, like, where does this Texas Tech defense rank to you? He's like, it's the best defense Texas Tech, like, football history. It's their best defense ever. It's 8th nationally for him this year, and I believe PFN had it as the number 4 or 5 defense nationally so far. Like, Texas Tech's defense has been phenomenal. It is aggressive. It is great at getting to the quarterback. It's great at putting on pressure. Like, it is a phenomenal defense. So even if the offense has to go through a quarterback change, even if the offense oftentimes settles for field goals instead of punching in touchdowns, and we've talked about that for the last few weeks, the defense has been so good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And so, look, could Texas Tech lose a game? Absolutely. They've still got to play at Arizona State. They still have BYU on the schedule. But to me, those are the only two chances outside of some wild flukiness of them having 2 losses. Texas Tech is going to be in Arlington. So this isn't like, well, it's okay if we have a couple losses because it's going to be like last year, there's going to be a 4-way tie for who gets to get in there. No, it is going to be who is the second best record in the conference and can you win the tiebreakers to face Texas Tech in Arlington. That's where we're at, guys. And I could be wrong, but I feel very, very confident that I am not. That Texas Tech is going to be there, and it's a battle for who's going to face them.
Well, and to that point, they've had 2 games now where their starting quarterback, Morton, gets knocked out, and it's a relatively close game when he exits the game, right? You look back to that game with Utah, and then KU has the momentum going into halftime in that game, and they don't score another point, and Utah doesn't score another point from that point on. So you have it spot on. When your defense is that good, and when you do have a backup quarterback who can, just go old school single wing and run it and toss something out to the flats and get it done, it's a tough proposition to come out and say, hey, yeah, there's multiple losses for this team. Shahan Jayaraja talked about it. He said that when they built this roster, they wanted to go to town on the defensive side of the trenches and in the offensive line to make it so you don't need superhuman stuff from whoever your quarterback is. So you don't need to have these all-world wide receivers. You don't need to have the best DBs in the world, because when you have 4 angry dudes in your face every time you go back to pass, it doesn't matter who your quarterback is. It doesn't matter who you're passing it to. It's tough. And when you can move everyone out of the way, if you can give your quarterback 7 seconds, it doesn't matter everything else. They built this roster to do exactly what they've been doing in the Big 12. And I think Cody Campbell's millions are really having the first ROI, a positive ROI in the history of, pay for play in college football. I think it's amazing what they've done.
I'm ready to run through a brick wall. That was really good, Scott. I love what you have to say. I mean, I don't have much to say about Texas Tech, but I'll just be interested to see. I agree with you, Phillip, on they're going to be in the championship game. And I'm just interested to see who will be in there with them, because there are so many different options. There are so many different things that could potentially happen. And are you good if I just continue on to the next question that's on the list of who it could be?
Yeah, hit it.
Well, I mean, I personally think it's going to be between Utah or Cincinnati and whoever wins the game against those two. I just think that they have the most momentum, and at first I wasn't impressed with how Cincinnati was playing, especially when they were playing against Iowa State, but I think that's a little bit of a bias just because I'm such a big Iowa State fan. But with how they're playing and the next couple of games that they have on their schedule, I think they have a really, really nice chance to make it to the final. And same with Utah. I just like the way that the rest of the schedule is playing out for them.
I mean, at this point, and I know that Sam Leavitt was out on Saturday night, but Sam Leavitt doesn't play defense. And Utah's offense, I don't think Utah's defense is as good as it's been in the past. I don't think it's as good as its reputation. But the offense, and I get it, Devin Dampier, is more of a running quarterback than he's a passing quarterback. But the offense is phenomenal. Utah has blasted everyone except Texas Tech. And that was a close game until Texas Tech pulled away in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. That was, what was it? It was, until the fourth quarter.
Wasn't it a 3-point game in the fourth quarter?
Yeah. It was 10-3 Utah. Or Texas Tech led 10-3. And then it was 13-10 in the fourth quarter. So Texas Tech led 13-10 with 10:22 left, and then Texas Tech ripped off 3 touchdowns to end the game and put the game out of the way. Otherwise, it was a close game, and Utah's blasted everybody. Again, I know having Sam Leavitt probably would have made a huge difference for Arizona State, but he doesn't play defense. He's not the reason Utah put up 42 points on Arizona State. I said it before the season. And I had a lot of side eyes and laughs and shut up, Phillip. I think this Utah team is the Utah team that Utah fans thought they were going to have last year. Now, not exactly the same, but from a standpoint of there's a really good football team, they are. Okay? Well, Arizona State without it, and you beat West Virginia and Wyoming and Cal Poly and UCLA. Yeah, I get all that. I get all of that. And they're going to have their opportunities. They got Holy War this weekend. As you mentioned it, Cincinnati's on November 1st. That game looks like it could be an absolute doozy. But otherwise, it's Colorado at home, at Baylor, Kansas State at home, at Kansas. Like, Utah is a contender. Because, again, we don't hold it against them if your loss is to Texas Tech. Yeah. It's the same reason that the BYU, who is still undefeated, we'll talk about them coming up a little bit later. Cincinnati, obviously undefeated in conference play. Cincinnati, TC, or Texas Tech, and BYU, the only ones who are 3-0 in conference play so far. Utah's got a loss. Arizona State's got a loss. They're not out of it. Houston is at 2-1. That loss is to Texas Tech. I'm really intrigued by Houston. And again, you can say like, well, Stephen F. Austin, Rice, Colorado, Oregon State, and Oklahoma State. Like, I get it. They don't exactly have a gauntlet of a schedule the rest of the way either.
Yeah, never say never.
Arizona, and you can't apologize for that. When you're in a 16-team league, the schedule is what it is. And again, I think you pointed it out correctly with Arizona State and Utah. Again, you can poke holes in the schedules, right? And that's fair, right? If you want to do power rankings and use that, okay, that's fine. But when you want to talk about true contenders for that first Saturday in December, you don't have to apologize for how the schedule fell out. That is just how it goes. So I don't have any time to detract from folks when we're saying, oh, who have they played? Okay, if you want to talk power rankings, that's fine. But when you're talking about contenders, if you beat who's in front of you on your conference slate, it is what it is. Cincinnati, again, they're going to have their games. You mentioned it. Utah, they have Holy War coming up. But I don't have any time for, if a BYU or a Baylor fan saying, well, look at the conference slate we've had to do, or a TCU fan saying, well, look at our slate, what we've had to play. No, give me a break. You have to beat who's in front of you, and this is the world we live in with a 16-team conference. So I think you laid out the contenders perfectly. Things can change. There's still enough time, but I think those are the two that I have my eyes on with how the schedules play out and where the momentum's going.
The race for second place, I think it's going to be way more interesting than the people probably think. Like, I get it. BYU, Cincinnati, Utah's still there. Arizona State's not out of it. Houston's 2-1, and their schedule is very favorable. Baylor's 2-1 in conference play, folks. Now, look, we can say, well, they got a rivalry game.
They shouldn't be. It took the biggest collapse in Big 12 play in 10 years to get there. But like I said, you don't apologize for your schedule. So congrats, Baylor.
Use a W. W is a W. And so I think it's crazy. Listen, I hate doing schedule stuff, but I'm gonna for a second. I do think Houston is a contender. The remaining schedule is Arizona at Arizona State, West Virginia at UCF, TCU at Baylor. I'm not saying they're not going to trip up a game here or there. Like, they might. Okay? Let's not act like Baylor's just beatable or unbeatable. Like Houston just should be expected to beat every single team on their schedule remaining. Just because there's no one ranked doesn't matter. But Houston has a schedule that is now avoids Utah, Cincinnati, BYU. It's Arizona State. It's the only other one that's left of what we're considering the contenders left, and then Baylor at the end of the season. Houston's got a path right there. It might require winning out, but they're, again, a second loss, depending on who that is, they may be sitting there pretty going, well, tiebreaker works in our favor because we have 2 losses in conference play, and one of them is Texas Tech, and we don't count that one because everyone's probably going to lose to Texas Tech. I still don't think we're going to have a repeat of a regular season game in the conference championship game, but the point here is there's more contenders than we thought, just based off what's still available and who's still in the running. So I think this is going to be a really fun race to the end. And I think the race to who's going to make a bowl game and who isn't is also really interesting, because at this point, the only teams I'm like, not going to happen are West Virginia and Oklahoma State. That's it. Should I pick Kansas State to win 3 of their final 5 games? Probably not.
Yes.
But yeah, I was going to say,
okay,
I'm kind of feeling it. I'm kind of feeling it.
Like,
it all depends on that KU game. If K-State goes into Lawrence and wins, KU may never beat K-State ever again. If it's not this year, it literally may never happen. But if they win that one, I think the Stillwater curse is going to be broken, and I think they're going to get Colorado on Senior Day. So you answer that question with how you think the Sunflower Showdown is going to go. So that's my rebut to that, Phillip.
No, again, like the bowl race is interesting because again, I think West Virginia, Oklahoma State just knock them off. Otherwise, you have 3-3 UCF, probably not, but it's not impossible. You've now got 3-4 Colorado, 4-2 TCU, 4-2 Arizona, 3-4 Kansas State, 4-3 Kansas, 5-2 Iowa State, 4-2 Baylor. Like, we. Do you know how much I would love to see a 13 bowl team Big 12 this year?
Huge.
That would be phenomenal. 13 bowl games? Right. Just hook that right into my veins and just pump it. Okay. Pump it like it's going to cure a disease. Okay.
Right.
Please give me that much Big 12 bowl action this season.
Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
Okay. Leah.
Yep.
Since we have you here.
Yeah, what's up?
I have to ask. What the hell's happened to Iowa State? I understand the DBs are gone, but
we got
that
the
doesn't
injury
explain
bug.
the slow starts on offense.
I know.
It just took a while for that Ireland hangover to get to you
I
guys.
think you nailed it, Scott. That's what it was. I've been trying to explain that to everyone, but they just don't understand. Jet lag gets to you, not right after, but 4 weeks down the road. That's what it.
Months later.
No, injuries. You and me both. I really thought they were going to come out with their heads on fire after that Cincinnati loss, and it just wasn't there. Everyone seemed a little off. We couldn't put a pin in what it was. You know, we were racking our brains on what's going on with Iowa State. I think I hate blaming it on refs. I'm not the person to do that, but that flag pickup on the PI was I think it got everyone a little frazzled. So it just, I don't know. Iowa State's just starting off a little slow, and it will be nice to have a bye week, and then it'll be really, really interesting to see how they come out against BYU.
Yeah, it's so weird. Again, the defensive injuries, I get it. But the offense's consistent slow start 2 weeks in a row, Matt Campbell seems frazzled. And I feel like his team is reflecting that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can totally tell that too. And real quick, can we talk about our emergency kicker?
Oh.
Come on.
We need Conrarty. We need him.
I think that's been again, not to keep talking about injuries, but that has been really tough too because Iowa State feel like they can't play free because they don't have Kyle coming out and kicking a 60-yard field goal all the time. Like they feel like they have this pressure on the back of them, and I think that's been kind of playing in their head too because they're so used to having just such a strong kicker.
Yeah, I could, and it's a big part of that offense.
Mm-hmm.
Is knowing that you can go out and have somebody kick a 48-yard or 52-yard field goal. And so it's why I look at them and go, you in the first quarter punted from Colorado's 33.
Yeah.
What are you doing punting from the opponent 33-yard line?
Yeah.
That's some late years Mike Gundy nonsense. What are you doing, Campbell? They just seem off. And maybe this week off will benefit them.
I think it
will be very interesting because, look, you come out and then it's BYU, Arizona State at home back to back. That's going to be an interesting 2 weeks. So they're not out of it, but I'm moving into that spot because I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't trust this team at this point. Kelly could come on here and be like, see, the numbers were right. And I'll be like, all right, fine. I was wrong. It's not the first time. It will definitely not be the last time on this podcast that I have to say that. But yeah, it's wild to me to see Iowa State, who's looked so solid.
I know.
Just seem to fall apart.
It's tough. It definitely hurts me. And I can tell a lot of the fans are discouraged. But as an athlete, it will be really awesome to see how they come out and just how they're able to respond. Because when people start talking about, them being out of contention for postseason, a lot of people might shrivel up and not want to play to the best of their abilities, but they still have a lot to prove. And I think their game against BYU will definitely show that.
I don't know if our deep dive guest is going to be able to make it tonight. So with that in mind, we should talk about BYU because I'm not going to label myself a hater, but I've been a little bit of a doubter about BYU so far this season. And I have to give them credit. They went on the road to Arizona, came back in the game, and pull off the win in overtime. And look, Arizona led 24-14 early in the fourth quarter. BYU gets the touchdown they need to tie it up with 19 seconds left and is able to win the game in overtime. And it took 2 overtimes, but BYU is 6-0. They remain undefeated. This is a team that just will not die, I guess. I still don't love this BYU team. It's not a win where I'm like, oh, I was so wrong. This team is obviously going to win the whole Big 12. They're not going to lose a game all season. But I have to give them more credit than I did. It's the same thing we said. You have the games in front of you. You have the schedule in front of you. And the fact that they're 3-0 on the road, when we thought East Carolina in non-conference was a trap game, it wasn't. When they struggled with Colorado but came back to win, when they've struggled some with Arizona, I know there was a rain delay and that impacted the game. But to come back and win in double overtime, BYU just keeps finding a way. And now we're setting up for a ranked-on-ranked holy war. Oh, and by the way, I'm just going to give me a second. Just give me a second. Because at this point, we're off the notes, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. Shout out to Fox. Not because of who they have involved in Big Noon, because it's a middle of nowhere gas station sushi roll, but at least they take Big Noon to Big 12 games. They're going to be in Provo for the Holy War, and that is absolutely phenomenal. So shout out to Fox. This is now the 8th time since the start of the 2024 season where Fox has brought Big Noon kickoff to a game involving the Big 12 conference. Do you know how many times ESPN has brought game day to a game involving the Big 12 conference that wasn't a playoff game since the start of the 2024 season?
0.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's so sad.
None.
Yeah.
They have, however, gone to 6 Big 10 conference games since the start of the 2024 season, despite ESPN not actually having broadcast rights to any of the Big 10 games.
Well, and I think that is I think it's a little two-pronged. Not to go to bat for Fox too hard, because, again, I believe, and if I'm wrong, anyone can tell me I'm wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. Been wrong on this show a handful of times. Been right a handful as well. But I don't think Fox ever goes to a place where they don't have the game. I don't think the Big Noon game has ever gone somewhere that isn't on a Fox platform. Is that correct? I think they've gone to some FS1 games and all that stuff. But I do want to give them credit because, to your point, Phillip, they could have easily gone, because I think the actual Big Noon, the kickoff game, right? That Fox game, I think it's in Michigan, right? It's Michigan, Washington, right? 2 brands, 2 helmets that look good. Okay. They easily could go there, and I don't think anyone would have given it a second thought, right? It's at the Big House. They have their most famous person is a Michigan guy. So they easily could have gone there. It would have been a big deal. But choosing to go to one of, if not the best rivalries in the entire sport, ranked on ranked matchup, to your point, they are going to where the fan pandemonium is going to be. They are going to where the better TV show is going to be. And I think that they are proving that they are willing to do that no matter where it is. And I think it goes hand in hand to your crusade telling folks to watch the TNT game. Again, this isn't saying, hey, everyone leave Fox on your TV for your dogs when you're running errands. But I do think that they are being a better partner than ESPN has been, at least with football. So to your point, I think that's a big deal. But at the same time, I feel like it's the obvious pick, right? That is 100% one of the best games next week. And I'm glad Fox is realizing that. And it makes it easier that it's going to be on their platform. But I agree. I'm pumped for it. I think the fans are going to be nuts. There's going to be tons of red, tons of blue. It's going to be a great TV show. For folks who just like fun live TV, that is going to be a fun program to watch.
And this perfect segue to watch the TNT games. Put it on a TV. I don't care. Shout out to the Houston fans who I saw commenting on the broadcast on Twitter about wow, this is they're focused on Houston. They're talking about Houston in this game. It's they're talking about the Big 12. they're not just like, oh, and by the way, we're going to talk about this top 10. Did you see Ohio State? It's not they don't have conversations about the SEC and the Big Ten. That's not what this is about. It is about the Big 12. They are talking about the game and the teams and the conference they are broadcasting. Their halftime show talks about the other Big 12 games. Yes, they talk about some stuff nationally, but like, it's not like we have all of we got to talk about what happened at Ohio State and Georgia. No, Big 12's not an also ran to them. They treat the Big 12 like it matters. And it is an absolutely incredible thing. If you have not watch the pregame. Put it on and watch it before this Saturday's game kicks off. Watch the pregame. It's phenomenal. I need TNT to give us an alternate to Big Noon and Game Day. Like, it is phenomenal coverage. Everything they're putting out and their partnership with Bleacher Report, the Bleacher Report puts out, it is phenomenal Big 12 coverage. Look, I love college football, and I like other schools getting talked about. I love that it was happening in Indiana. I like what happened in Memphis, like all of that. The Big 12, if you are a Big 12 fan, and you're like, I want more people to talk about the Big 12. Well, guess what? Some people are. So give them their due for that. Say thank you by watching. Because if you want people to talk about you, but then you don't ever watch when they are, and you're like, well, I got to go here to ESPN because that's the only one that matters. They won't bring Game Day. The last time they were in a Game Day in a Big 12 game was Red River in 2023. That's how long it's been. And that was two SEC teams who were headed to the SEC.
And before that was the Big 12 championship game in 2022.
So, watch TNT.
And also,
watch TNT.
Spam your ADs and tell them that you want more TNT partnership, by the way.
Yes, more.
They need to hear that type of stuff.
All right. We're going to get to our next segment here in a minute, but I do have to also shout out Oklahoma State fans. I'm sure you've all seen this by now, but in case you missed it, starts off with one guy on a dare by his sister to go stand in an empty section of the stadium because there's no fans there, takes off his shirt and is just waving it around his head. 3 more guys join him. Now there's 4. Next thing you know, there's like 2 whole sections of the stadium that is just shirtless dudes, guys being dudes. That is the epitome of just hundreds of guys being dudes, standing shirtless at a game in which Oklahoma State's going to lose and loses and having a grand old time. And it is part of like the national conversation about this weekend. And you know what? Bravo. Like, anything to change the conversation about Oklahoma State other than the team sucks this year, of like, this is fun. I'm glad you found a way to be like, ESPN named him like the national fan base of the student section of the weekend. Like, I am a voter for the Big 12 student section of the week. I promise you it will be Oklahoma State. I don't care that they lost. It doesn't matter. They deserve it for that. Like, it's getting talked about nonstop. And I'm like, that's college football, fans. That's college football. Bravo. Bravo.
Are you going to be out there next week?
Shirtless? Yeah. No. Listen, I saw the photo. There's a lot of guys who are perfectly fine being caught on camera or video shirtless. Like, no one's said. I am 41 years old, and I am no. Maybe in my youth, but not now. Okay. Before we let you guys go, be remiss, Scott. Kansas State gets a very nice win, wins the Battle of the Purple. TCU continues to struggle in Manhattan. Is this, it feels like there's a bit of a turnaround for Kansas State, like, being honest. Like, I get it, TCU is what, it does feel like things have started to kind of turn around. Maybe Matt Wells is starting to figure things out. Maybe this team is starting to figure some things out. I know nobody wants Matt Wells to be the OC next season. But, like, I know I made the joke, but I do feel like there is actually a chance that Kansas State could get to bowl eligibility this season.
Well, I don't think that it's like a joke that they could get to bowl eligibility, right? Like, I think that if there was a game, if the games were being played next week, I think K-State would be a favorite over Colorado at home. I think they'd be a favorite over Oklahoma State and Stillwater if the game was being played next week. And I'll be interested to see what the bookmakers say about the game in Lawrence. I think it's going to be, I think it's probably going to open up maybe KU 2.5, 3.5, but I think by kickoff it'll be close to a pick'em. So I don't think it's crazy to think that they could find 3 wins. And look, I'll say this: if they were to have not had that just monumental collapse in Waco, right? I think that there would be a segment of K-State's fan base looking around saying, well, why couldn't we, run the table, or why couldn't we just drop one more and end up 7-2, right? If you would have picked up that one, say, why couldn't you split Utah and Texas Tech, win everything else, and be 7-2 and see where the tiebreakers land? Because there was enough good stuff in that Baylor game, even with the collapse, even if they would have found a way to have a field goal go 56 yards without getting blocked, I think there'd be a segment of folks saying, well, why not? I was very pleased with the defense in that game. Desmond Purnell, if he is not the defensive player of the week in the Big 12, I'm going to mount up an army and march on Dallas, and I'm going to tar and feather at least 3 different Big 12 employees. 2 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, a pick 6, a sack, another tackle for a loss. He had a great game. The defense had a great game. The offense is not fixed. There was 3 drives to start the game where you get to the TCU 44 and you punt on all of them. So the offense isn't fixed, but the defense showed me enough. And look, I think that a bowl game should be the goal. But look, if you beat KU, I think you could have a very fun atmosphere when Texas Tech comes to town. And I'm not predicting a win, but K-State under Chris Kleiman has had worse teams beat top 10 teams in Manhattan before. So again, I'm not predicting it, especially with how good Texas Tech is in the trenches. But I think there's going to at least be a fun little atmosphere to see what might happen in Manhattan that Saturday if they can get the Sunflower Showdown.
Scott, Leah, I appreciate your time today. Great having you both on. Thank you for going a little bit longer than originally planned. Of course, listen to Boscoe's Boys, phenomenal Kansas State show, part of the 1012 network. Scott does a great job. Dude, it's just like there's a reason that Kansas State fans love you. There's a reason Big 12 fans ask for you to come back on. Like, you do a great job, and I always appreciate your time. Leah, girl, you get better and better and better and better and better and better and better. What you do with Cyclone Fanatic is phenomenal, and I'm very much looking back forward to having you on a regular basis again when it comes to softball season. You kill it every time you're on the show. You make my job easier. So shout out to both of you. Appreciate you hopping on tonight. We'll talk to y'all again soon.
Thanks, Phillip.
And real quick, shout out to Audie Crooks, preseason player of the year,
Let's
Iowa
go.
State, Charlie Hustle athlete, and a Kansas native from Iowa State also in the preseason. So women's basketball is almost here, Phillip. Feel free to bring me on so I can talk about how great the young guns from K-State are going to be. So thanks again for having me on.
Will do.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
All right, we move on to, segment 2, segment 3. Technically it's segment 3, but segment 1 just blended into segment 2. So here we are, no problems whatsoever. And that means that I'm bringing on my twice-a-week cohort. A man I enjoy seeing every time his face appears. I know this is a podcast, so it's audio only, but I get the honor of actually face-to-face time with him each week. He is Chase A. Kiddy, our BetMGM pro bettor. Chase, welcome back, man.
Yes, Phillip gets the distinct honor of seeing me wear the same Henley 2 weeks in a row on Sunday night.
Listen, it's a Sunday night. It is a dress for comfort time. So whatever is a go-to, whatever gets the juices flowing, or at least it's calming the nerves, that's what you roll with. Okay. I'm sitting here in like black whatever shorts and a home field t-shirt. So it's all good.
That sounds all good and all. I think what actually happened is I spilled a Diet Coke on myself 90 seconds before we started this, and I needed to change shirts. And when I say I spilled a Diet Coke on myself, I mean like 16 ounces of Diet Coke all over the place.
Now,
and
I just clear, was this like can exploded on you, or like just like comically?
I was
kind of
jittery. I really had to pee. I was doing things out of order, and I just like knocked the tumbler all over myself and all over the desk, and I just looked around and, hey, look, it's the shirt I took off last Sunday when I did this. So there we go. Here's where I am. Perfect. Everybody's caught up on my shirt now.
Glad to hear it. Of course, podcasting, a visual medium. Chase, let's start as we always do. Which outcome this weekend had the biggest impact on your view on that team or the conference as a whole?
I think Look, if we're making championship circle, right? Who's inside the circle? Who's outside the circle of contenders right now? I think you have a 1A and a 1B. Group 1A is Texas Tech. They get their
Correct.
own category. Group 1B is, we sure would like to be invited to that championship game so we can lose by 35. And I think that group is Cincinnati, BYU, and Utah. Right now, that's what it looks like. And BYU sort of stamps their official membership card in that group by getting the double overtime win at Arizona. One of the few bets I was on the wrong side of this weekend. And I think you and I both have talked about BYU in the past. We are skeptical. The schedule is not friendly down the stretch. But when you're 6-0 and it's mid-October and you control your destiny because you play all three of those other teams head-to-head, like you get the membership card, right? Regardless of what happens in the future, there are no more ifs when you're 6-0. You're 6-0.
They're in the field, like they are. And I have to give them, we talked a lot about them last week. I haven't bought in. I'm not saying that Saturday's performance makes me sit here and go like, no, I was wrong. They're going to Arlington. But like, I have to give them the credit for winning a game I really thought that was going to be the time that tripped them up. And look, they just find a way to survive. And sometimes that's all it is. Like, can you survive in advance? And so far they continue to do so, 6-0, just one of two undefeated teams in the Big 12 with Texas Tech. By golly, I sure wish Cincinnati had that win over Nebraska. That one just hurts even more right now than it did at the time. I want to dive into you. Let's go into your up and down first, and then we'll kind of dive in some more on our contenders list. But whose stock are you up on after Saturday?
Well, it's BYU because I was reluctant to put them in that clear-cut inner circle, right? And when you get the road win at Arizona, I'm trying to be like, hold myself to a standard I would hope other people would hold themselves to when discussing a team that I like. When you get that win and you're 6-0, I think you have to take a step back from, I still don't see it with them because I haven't changed my mind. I haven't changed my mind about what BYU is or what their schedule is. But you have to acknowledge the record and what they've done to this point. And like you said, they continue to find a way to win. So I have to upgrade them, I think, on where I see them and what circle they're in. And they're in that championship circle.
Yeah. Next 3 games for them. It's Holy War, of course, this coming Saturday, primetime on Fox, at Iowa State, and then an idle week, and then they'll be on the road at Texas Tech. They've also got a road game at Cincinnati later in November. So BYU's like the time is here. Like the meat of the schedule is officially here. Like period. End of story. So it will be interesting to see how they perform down that stretch. Before we get to your team that you're down on, we talked about this with Leah and Scott. You did your 1A, 1B. 1A is Texas Tech. 1B is BYU, Cincinnati, and Utah. There's 3 teams who are technically not eliminated in my book because the rule I have put in place is losing to Texas Tech does not eliminate you from contention because we know they're going to be there. So you're not going to have to worry about a tiebreaker scenario with Texas Tech. Like maybe it's like, okay, well, it's 3 teams and like one didn't play Texas Tech. So congratulations, you're in. But from the standpoint of like, if you're going to have 2 losses or you're going to have a loss, like 2 losses and neither of them are Texas Tech, 1 loss and it's not Texas Tech, or 1 loss and it is Texas Tech. So, for instance, I'm not taking Houston out of my contending list. I understand Arizona State's loss. I think I'm going to give a lot more credit to Utah for that win than I am Arizona State for the loss. But like Arizona State's technically still in this thing. Baylor's 2-1, but I can't. I can't physically get myself to get up for that one. What are your thoughts on Houston and the notion of I want you to look at their schedule the rest of the way and understand that the door is wide open for them. Speaking of controlling your destiny, it's Arizona at Arizona State, West Virginia at UCF, TCU at Baylor.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here, and I think this is a case where you are technically correct. I'm not going to say you're not, but when I'm putting together like how I see the conference and who's competing for what, I would have them outside the circle. I would have them out on a second level because, like Baylor, I think they're a good team that is fundamentally flawed. Baylor, the fundamental flaw is up front. They can't defend the run, right? And it's really hard to win a conference championship if you can't stop the run. Houston, I like what they do defensively. I think we could say that about a lot of Big 12 teams this year. But I don't know that the offense is going to be there to keep up with some of the more balanced teams. And I think they strike me as a team when they go, let's assume Sam Levitt's healthy in 2 weeks when they go to Arizona State. They strike me as a team that is going to be in it for the first 2.5 quarters just because the defense is going to keep them there. But once the team they're playing, especially if it's on the road, goes up 10, they're just not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be able to play from behind. They're not going to have the dimensions offensively, I think, to do that. And so that's kind of how I see them. And then Baylor, like I said, just like I want to believe. I liked Baylor this year. I had a little bit of futures exposure, but you can't stop the run. You can't win a conference championship like that.
No. Okay. Who's your stock down on at this point?
Mechanically, it's Iowa State because you lose the Colorado game, you drop to 2-2 in conference play. It's not like, oh, you lost to an inferior team, and so you have to now deal with that loss in the standings, but maybe you could play your way back into it. They lost because they now have a problem they can't fix, right? And that's not going to be better next week. It's not going to be better a month from now. And so you have to slide them after the start where you would have said, hey, this is one of the teams to beat. They have the early conference win against Kansas State. So, a little bit of early action. You have to slide them now out of that picture and more into the middle class of the conference because they're a well-coached team with a really effective quarterback and some nice offensive pieces that has a average to below average defensive backfield at this point. And that's going to cost them more games, I guess. I would guess.
Yeah. No. I mean, yeah. I'd be shocked if it didn't.
Right. So that
because you're asking Iowa State at this point to run the table, and I'm not going to pick them to do that.
Yeah, of course not. So that's almost the answer that has to be the answer, right? What I really wanted to play with was the team you were playing with last week, which was TCU. They're my honorary mention loser, I guess, for this week, because if you're going to be the TCU that I think we were kind of projecting them to be, sort of like a second quartile Big 12 team, if you're going to be in that second group, you got to go to Kansas State and win. You got to beat this Kansas State team. You can't lose that game. And so I think they're just going to be in the messy middle with a lot of other teams. I think maybe they're going to struggle to separate. And I think last week with the Colorado game, whereas you were ready to be more critical of them, I was sort of a week early on the Colorado stuff. I saw it. I think what it ends up being is that we were kind of both right. Is that, yes, I was early on Colorado, but also maybe there's a little bit of a TCU problem.
This TCU Baylor game on Saturday feels like the Spider-Man meme of two mid teams just kind of pointing at each other.
We'll always have 2014, Phillip. We'll always have
2014. Yes, we will. Before I let you go, I mean, it's Texas Tech versus the field at this point. Like it absolutely feels like it.
Mathematically, it's actually more than that now. Yep.
Okay, hit me.
Texas Tech. So last week, if you're reading the roundup column every Monday on the BetMGM blog, I was talking about how, hey, Texas Tech, they were, I don't remember exactly what they were, but they were something like plus 130 last week. And I said, hey, that is a really short, for the Big 12, for the chaotic Big 12 with all the stuff that happens in this conference, that's a very short price for a Big 12 team on October 5th or whatever it was. And I would buy it now because it's only going to get shorter. And that's exactly what happened, because after another week, they're now a minus 200 favorite. So when you talk about, hey, who do you like, X team or the field, what you're essentially saying is, I'll give you one team for minus 110. I'll give you all the other teams in a pot for minus 110. Even odds, take your pick. So now that Texas Tech is minus 200, they're not just an odds-on favorite. They are bigger than that. The implied odds there would say 2 out of 3 times Texas Tech is going to win this conference. So they are a big favorite right now, and I think they should be. I think that's the right price.
Yes. Yeah. No, the defense is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. All right, we'll wrap this up with this. Obviously, you work for BetMGM, but the lines I have are circa, so forgive me for doing this. But any of the opening lines that stand out to you, they were UCF -6 versus West Virginia, Houston -1 versus Arizona, TCU -4 versus Baylor, Cincinnati -19 at Oklahoma State, Utah -2 at BYU, and Texas Tech -10 at Arizona State. Any of those that just stick out to you as like, well, that's interesting?
If Levitt's not playing, I would lay it with Texas Tech. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. I might do some work on that West Virginia game. I think if you caught me, I don't know. I could see myself betting both of those sides. So I don't know how I feel about that, I guess. And then Cincinnati, I'd probably lay it. Sorry.
No,
Yeah, I mean,
after Saturday, I really went into Saturday thinking like, okay, Fado issue on the road and maybe side with them at home. And I'm done with that. I think I'm done with that. I'll say this, the UCF West Virginia game, I'm in a Survivor League and really feel like I need to be able to use one of those teams to hang on to some of my better teams down the line. And so I'm going to think about that game a lot this week.
I mean, I think the case for West Virginia is coming off bye. They have some of their personnel problems aren't fixable, but they have something planned that will make the best of a terrible situation. And are we sure that UCF should be laying that kind of number? Like, one of the things you focus a lot on if you're an advantage bettor is the different situations for a team on when they're a dog versus when they're a favorite. Because it's one thing to be a crafty dog that covers numbers, and they get inside the number against Cincinnati with that monster late fourth quarter drive. I wrote about that in the Big 12 Roundup column this week too. So they get inside the number there as a big multi-possession dog. But now you're gonna lay. I'm seeing some 7.5s already. I think that's a plus 105 7.5. So not quite sure what's going on there with that number, but if this line moves to the 7 through the 7 toward UCF, I'm not sure that they should be laying a touchdown in this spot. But then again, I think we said that again about UCF during the North Carolina game too, and that one got late pretty early. So who knows? Maybe it's just ends up being a stay away, and we'll talk about it more Wednesday.
Very good. Very good. All right, Chase, as always, appreciate it, bud. You mentioned Wednesday. We'll be back on Wednesday to make picks for the week. You'll hear that in your ears on starting Thursday morning. So, Chase, we'll talk to you then, bud.
All right. See you in a few days.
All right, we wrap the show up the same way every week. We're going to look ahead to the week that is coming up. Week 8. It is already week 8, folks. Like, it's already week 8. You get 14 weeks of a regular season, championship weekend, and then bowl games and playoff. It's week 8 coming up. See, the end of the season's getting scary close. 4 teams are idle this week: Colorado, Iowa State, Kansas State. 4 Big 8 teams. They're all idle this week. That's funny. I don't know why. It's not really, but another week of no weeknight games. So all the action is on Saturday. 6 games, 6 Big 12 conference games on Saturday morning. Offer us some interesting matchups. Houston hosting Arizona at 11 a.m. on FS1. Houston just a 1-point home favorite. We talked about Houston a lot this one. Kind of talked about Arizona. Like, Arizona's not in the running here, but for Houston, this is a big opportunity for them, and they have been much better at home than on the road. Cougars, like I said, not in that title game race. We also get the Revivalry, a.k.a. the Bluebell Bonnet Flower Patch Battle, or whatever they call it, with TCU hosting Baylor at 11 a.m. on ESPN2. It will always be the Revivalry. It just is. And TNT, their matchup this week is UCF versus West Virginia. No, it's not what I would air quotes say is a good game. It's not two, really good teams. It might be a close game. I don't know it's to be a good game. Doesn't matter. Watch the pregame. Have the game on somewhere. Support TNT. They are doing a phenomenal job, and we want them to continue to invest in the Big 12. They need more Big 12 games. They need more. They want more. They want more Big 12. They want to continue to spend on the Big 12. Reward them for that, okay? UCF, West Virginia, two teams that hired retrade coaches and are still searching for their first conference win. Should be an interesting one. One afternoon matchup could be a good one. Arizona State hosting Texas Tech. Will the Sun Devils have Sam Levitt back? Will Texas Tech have Baron Morton? The last thing I saw is that he's kind of day-to-day. X-rays, MRIs came back negative, but we're just going to have to kind of keep an eye on things. It's at 3 o'clock on Fox. Love, again, Fox. Shout out Fox. We have a 3 o'clock game and a 7 o'clock game featuring Big 12. Two primetime matches. Oklahoma State hosting Cincinnati at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. That is a football game that will be occurring. And the Holy War. Oh, the Holy War. Second time it's a Big 12 game. Cannot wait. BYU hosting Utah, 7 p.m. on Fox. Big new kickoff is going to be there. It's phenomenal. Cougars remain undefeated. Utah's only lost to Texas Tech. This should be a doozy. It was a great one last year. It should be a phenomenal game this week. Absolutely phenomenal. No Big 12 after dark this week, but that's okay. Lots of great games. Y'all, like I said, we'll be back on Thursday to make picks. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, everybody who listens. We love y'all. Have yourselves a good week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Member Week is here at Lowe's. That means it's time for MyLowe's Rewards members to save big with up to 40% off hundreds of items like appliances, tools, home essentials, and more. Plus, get free standard shipping. Shop these exclusive member-only savings now through October 15th. Not a rewards member? Join for free today. Free standard shipping not available in Alaska and Hawaii. Exclusions and more terms apply. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.